Imagine a year that slowly slides out of step with the seasons, not by clerical accident, but by design and by concealment. In Egypt, it had a name, the wandering year. That wandering is the single thread I follow today.
Welcome to Stargate Codex. I am Dr. Elias Thorn, lead historian and decoder of ancient systems. We bypass standard chronological textbooks to dissect preserved records, mathematical constants, and structural anomalies left by history's most guarded initiatory networks. Prepare to decode the pattern.
Start with a concrete problem. Egypt's civil year counted 365 days, full stop, no leap day. Administrative papyri, tax lists, and monumental inscriptions use that number repeatedly. Yet farmers and priests watched the skies. The heliacal rising of Sirius, Sothis, returned on a slightly different civil date each generation. How was this resolved? Who decided when ritual and tax seasons would actually fall? This is not theoretical. It is administrative labor, performed and recorded.
We begin in Mesopotamia because the cuneiform archive gives us operational clarity. The Enuma Anu Enlil series and the Babylonian astronomical diaries are filled with practical notations, lunar phases, eclipse timings, planetary positions, and, crucially, explicit entries showing when an intercalary month was inserted. Here, the evidence is administrative, not speculative. Scholars such as Hunger and Pingree edited the diaries into modern critical editions that reveal repeated council or temple decisions to add a month to preserve festival season alignment. Those entries read like minutes, decisions made to correct the calendar.
Ask a simple question. If intercalation was merely a mathematical exercise, why does it show up in palace and temple ledgers? The Sumerian king list, when examined closely, contains marginalia, lists of months appended to reign tallies, notations that suggest added or omitted months to preserve regnal anniversaries and agricultural cycles. Those margins are not elegant theory. They are the bookkeeping of rulership. Timekeeping was governance. Back on the Nile, the solution took a different, more embodied form. Egyptian priests encoded stellar knowledge in decan lists, painted in tomb ceilings and in temple star charts. These are operational star atlases, sequences of decans used to time liturgy, processions, and agricultural markers. Where the civil 365-day tax year drifted, temple ritual followed the heavens. A foundation inscription citing a festival aligned to a heliacal rising indicates the moment the architects intended the sanctuary to open to the sky. That is an architectural instruction tethered to corrected time. Across the Mediterranean, the same tension appears in different paperwork. The Fasti Antiates, the fragmentary pre-Julian calendar preserved from Italy, contains ad hoc intercalations and reveals political manipulation of months. Roman Fasti, senatorial resolutions, and magistrates' proclamations document when months were added or suppressed to align magistrates and festivals. Alexandrian star canons, fragments attributed to the Hellenistic schools, served as reference points for synchronizing civic ceremonies to stellar phenomena.
I should be explicit. Continuity is rarely neat. There are gaps, interruptions, and local innovations. But continuity exists in the transmission of method. In early modern manuscripts associated with Rosicrucian circles and lodge almanacs, we encounter marginalia that reproduce corrective rules in condensed form, mnemonic devices, ciphered instructions, and simple algorithms for deciding when to insert a month. Those marginal notes do not often spell out full astronomical proofs. They offer practice, how to keep ritual and revenue in sync when the civil count begins to wander.
A particular form of evidence recurs, the marginal note.
In Rosicrucian copies of the Fama Fraternitatis and in Masonic almanacs, a line in the gutter might read, in paraphrase, "Insert the month after the rising of the third decan." Such shorthand functions as operational memory. Templar maritime logs present another vector. Captains recorded star risings and adjusted sailing schedules accordingly. Those logs are practical calendars, maritime intercalibration employed to preserve provisioning and to align ecclesiastical dates with navigation seasons. Why does this matter beyond antiquarian interest? Because corrected calendars shape stone. When foundation inscriptions record a festival at a heliacal rising, architects orient axes to that event. Orientation surveys of temples and sanctuaries show clustering toward corrected stellar risings more than toward arbitrary civic dates. The geometry of sacred space, axis, entrance, ceiling decans, becomes an embodied calendar. Architects were not following a civil almanac. They were following corrected celestial markers preserved by priestly knowledge.
That embodiment carries administrative weight. Fiscal cycles, the timing of tithes, corvée obligations, and resource disbursement, were often scheduled to ritual openings. If the priesthood controlled knowledge of when ritual truly fell, they controlled synchronization of revenue and labor. Where intercalibration was public and algorithmic, local officials could plan. Where it was guarded and transmitted through initiation, synchronization became a concentrated privilege of clerical elites and their networks.
Consider transmission pathways. Temple schools trained scribes in practical astronomy. Maritime logs moved practice along trade routes. Confraternal manuscripts, Rosicrucian and Masonic collections, preserved compact operational notes in margins and emblems. These networks functioned as custodial nodes for calendrical technique. The Templars, for instance, are represented in surviving maritime and port records as transmitters of navigational and seasonal knowledge. Their role in moving calendrical practice across the Mediterranean is plausible as a vector, if not always directly documented in continuous runs of manuscripts.
A necessary scholarly caveat. Many links are fragmentary and contested. Interpretive caution is required. Where the Babylonian diaries record explicit intercalation decisions, the documentary chain is strong. Where early modern marginalia echo ancient practice, we must allow for adaptive reuse and mnemonic continuity rather than literal institutional descent. I state the contested points openly and catalog sources in the episode notes, so verification is possible. Applying Skye Alden's frameworks, the synthesis is clear. The hidden year operates as a transmissible technology. It appears as administrative entries in cuneiform diaries, as marginal practice notes in confraternal manuscripts, and as architectural prescriptions in foundation inscriptions. In some archives, the practice is explicit and public. In others, it is encoded and shared only within initiated networks. Either way, intercalibration is not a peripheral curiosity. It is an applied system for coordinating ritual, construction, and the fiscal year.
To verify the documentary anchors I cite, the Enuma Anu Enlil fragments and the astronomical diaries, Hunger and Pingree, Sumerian king list marginalia, Old and New Kingdom decade lists and temple star charts, the Fasti Antiates and Roman Fasti, and early modern Rosicrucian and Masonic marginalia that preserve corrective algorithms in abbreviated form. Exact tablet numbers, ledger identifiers, and manuscript shelf marks are provided in the episode notes for direct scholarly comparison.
Download the episode notes, consult the tablet editions and the compendium chapters in Skye Alden's work, and examine the marginalia yourself. The evidence gains force under verification. That is the method we practice here. That concludes our historical tracking of this specific anomaly within the Codex. The records demonstrate that behind the curtain of standard history lies a repeating systemic mechanism of knowledge transmission and governance preserved across generations. We have laid out the timeline, parsed the primary source texts, and exposed the architectural blueprint. The archive never lies. The text remains.